actually fighting for everybody instead of just one group of people. They're fighting for white people.
Two protests scheduled for the same day end in clashes and multiple arrests in downtown Portland. Welcome to KOIN 6 News at 11. I'm Trevor Ault. Antifa protesters battled it out with members of Patriot Prayer, and if this feels familiar, it should. Today's events stem from a protest that happened a year ago. This was the scene in 2017 when thousands of pro-Trump demonstrators and counter-protesters converged in downtown Portland. Last year, Trump supporters planned a free speech rally downtown, but following the deadly mass stabbing just a few weeks before, Mayor Ted Wheeler instructed federal agents to revoke the rally's permit. Well, the group showed up anyway, and so did counter-protesters. Ultimately, police used smoke bombs and rubber bullets to disperse those crowds. They confiscated several weapons, and a total of 14 people were arrested. Now, that was then. This is now. Our Jennifer Dowling was there last year and there today. Jennifer, how did this one compare to last year's protest?
Well, Trevor, as far as crowd size is concerned, there were not as many people here this year as there were last year on either side, so the numbers were down. But those who were at the rallies really got into it. It was a challenge to separate Antifa and the Patriot Prayer group from clashing.
Across the head.
The pepper spray was flying, and sometimes bottles and other objects got tossed into the crowd. Scuffles broke out periodically, sometimes involving backpacks, hats, and flags. On the Patriot Prayer side, this freedom of speech rally was supposed to be a send-off for Tiny Toese. He was arrested during a scuffle with Antifa at last year's event.
Last thing we want is for Tiny to wind up going to jail before he has to go home.
A fight interrupted this interview, and out of a mass of people shoving, Tiny appeared. He just finished washing pepper spray out of his eyes when we caught up with him to ask about his trip home to the Samoan Islands.
How does it feel to be back for this last rally?
It's sad. We've been trying the whole time we've been coming into Portland. Everything has been good. But, you know, I think one of the problem here in Portland is the higher ups in Portland, starting from the mayor, the council, everybody. They need to do what's right, start standing up against these extremists.
Tiny was not detained this year, but there were still people taken away in cuffs. This man with blood streaming down his face. And another man was prevented from entering the park after officers found a 3-inch pocket knife on him. He was also taken away.
You're citing a law that doesn't exist. What am I being detained for? What am I being arrested for? Tell me, what am I being arrested for?
We talked to him after his release.
And then they said that I was failing to comply with a federal officer, and I went with them and we got a discussion. I'm going to appear in federal court.
There were shields in the crowd, and police confiscated what weapons they could. Those protesting Patriot Prayer told us they originally started this as a protest against police.
The protest was about police brutality, and that's something that has been pretty prevalent in my life.
They came out here to protest police violence. They came out here to taunt us.
Then it became about taking a stand against the other group.
They are the epitome of Trump supporters.
Group over there definitely changed the atmosphere.
Fascism loses always, and because they hate everybody and promote racist ideologies, and they're homophobic. And this.
As for Tiny, though he's leaving, he says he'll be back.
And I will be leaving for the islands, but believe me when I say I will be back. The Big Boy Tiny story just started, and it ain't ending soon. We're gonna come out here with my brothers, we're gonna hit Portland, we're gonna hit it hard.
And Tiny said that he could be back as early as 2 weeks from now from his trip. And of course, Joey Gibson is still around, and he will be hosting probably more of these rallies in the future. So I think we can expect more clashes.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. One of those where it dies down, but nothing's really resolved quite yet. Jennifer, thank you very much. Glad you were safe too, reporting in the midst of all that chaos.